Welcome, good morning everyone. We have a couple of first-time visitors. I am Reverend Cindy Grimes, and I'm just so thrilled to have you all here and our sometime visitors, and just welcome and have a good time, everyone. We know that it's no coincidence that you are here this morning, especially with this cold weather. You made an effort to come out here and be in spiritual community and hear a message, and I just affirm and know that everyone walks out of here today feeling like that message was meant just for them. So hope you all have a good time. So where's my clicker? I don't have a clicker here.
Yeah, it's right there.
Oh, it's here. Yes. All right, living the science of mind. We are here, a Science of Mind community. It's called Centers for Spiritual Living, and I talked a little bit about that last week. We started out, this philosophy is 100 years old, and we are celebrating that this year and this month. Historically, in Centers for Spiritual Living across the country, during the month of January, we talk about the basics of what it is that we teach. So we're going to be doing the same thing this morning, and most of the information that I'm sharing with you today comes from a book called Living the Science of Mind, which we actually have in the bookstore. So if you are interested in that, please feel free to pick up a book, and you can follow along as we go through the year with little short essays. But at any rate, we are called Centers for Spiritual Living. What we teach is called the Science of Mind. It was also called Religious Science. And as a person with just a tiny bit of a marketing background, it's never good to have all these different names for things. It confuses things. So I tend to just call us Centers for Spiritual Living, but if you hear those other phrases, that's where that comes from. It was originally called Science of Mind. It's also been called Religious Science. And then people get us all mixed up. And they want to ask, are you Scientology? Are you Christian Science? Are you this? Are you that? Do you go to doctors? Is Ernest, I even had a question once, is Ernest Holmes a deity for you all? Who was the founder of this? Absolutely not. He's not a deity, not at all. So, just for all of that, I may use those terms interchangeably. Religious Science, Science of Mind, or Centers for Spiritual Living, so don't be confused. It's all the same thing, okay? Centers for Spiritual Living is the organization. So, using the power within, that's what we're talking about today. And I want to go back just a little bit last week, a little review of what is this thing we call science of mind. And this is a definition that I actually came up with from a few different places, just trying to come up with that elevator speech. You all know that term, elevator speech? Oh, yeah. So when people ask you, what is this about? You can say it about 2 or 3 sentences. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure even this is simple enough, but it does explain it pretty thoroughly, I believe. So what are we? What is this teaching? It is a philosophy, it is a faith, and it is a way of life. It's a practical study of consciousness. That means hands-on. That means something you've got to use, right? It's practical, hands-on study of consciousness, which, by the way, we're using all the time. All the time. Your consciousness right now is what is allowing us to communicate, right? To understand one another, to be able to connect. We all connect in consciousness. So it's a study of consciousness and truth principles from a lot of different perspectives, from the scientific perspective, from philosophy, from psychology, and also from the spiritual perspectives. This man, Ernest Holmes, who founded this teaching, was brilliant, was absolutely brilliant. And he was able to look at and pull the common threads from the world's great religions, as well as philosophy and science and psychology. And I believe that that is because truth is truth. Right? When you hear it, there's something that happens inside of you. It resonates for you. And when it's truth, it's going to be true no matter where you're looking at it from. Right? It makes sense that it would be true for you logically, that it would be true from what you can observe in your day-to-day life, that it feels right. You know, that intuitive sense that we have. So I invite you all, whatever it is, whatever your philosophy is, your thought about life, or just about things in general, to question those things and look at them from those different aspects of life. Does it make sense for you in your daily observation of the world? Right? There are certain faiths out there that tell you to believe things on faith. Okay, and I'll just throw one out there, that made me crazy when I moved to the South. Because I grew up north, and it never occurred to me that people would believe in the Bible as a literal thing. Never occurred to me. I don't know why. I was raised in a pretty traditional faith, but it wasn't until I moved to the South that I realized there are people who look at some of these things in the Bible and say, well, yeah, if the Bible says that some man lived in a whale for 5 days or however long it was, well, it must be true. That just didn't work for me. So things you have to look at it from your perspective of, again, observation. Does that make sense? No, that doesn't really make sense that someone would live in a whale for days or weeks or whatever. So it must be metaphorical. That makes more sense to me. Right? So you look at it from observation, from what is happening in your actual world from a scientific perspective. You also can logic and reason things out. Right? That's why we have our logic. We don't ask you to check your logic at the door and say, just take it on faith. Okay, it needs to make sense. It needs to make sense for me, or I wouldn't be able to stand up here and speak what I speak. So you want to logic things out. And then again, you want it, does it feel right? Does it feel right? Does your intuition and some of us have mystical experiences, does it ring true? So look at your ideas and your beliefs from all those different perspectives. And say, does it work? And sometimes those beliefs will be, yes, that is true for me. That seems so. And then other things you'll go, now, why was I thinking that? Why was I believing that? So, anyway, science of mind. It is that practical study from all those different perspectives that empowers people to maximize their human potential. That is the whole reason for this faith, for this way of life, is so that you and I and all of the practitioners of this faith, of this path, can live the best lives that they can. Right? And this book, this Science of Mind book, on the back it says it's a manual for that, for helping people to achieve their maximum potential. And that has been, I believe, true for myself anyway. I will say that, and I will say that it is true for lots of other people, that when you get a hold of this and these ideas and you start working it, your life will change for the better. It absolutely does. It has for me.
Change your thinking.
Change your thinking, change your life. So this teaching is based on the principle that consciousness is the source and substance of all there is. And we are one with that consciousness, and that we use it to create our experience of life. Now that last piece there that we talked about, consciousness is the source and substance of all there is. That's pretty much what we focused on last week. The idea that the highest God and the innermost God is one and the same. Right? The highest God and the innermost God is one God. Ernest Holmes said it this way. One of our fundamental propositions is that God is all there is. That includes Spirit is the invisible essence and substance of all form. Again, we believe that God is all there is. Now, you may not be fond of that word. So if God doesn't work for you, if it conjures up images of a man sitting on a cloud with a big beard, don't use that word. It's okay. It doesn't matter. It doesn't care. Right? Call it God. Call it the universe. In some faith traditions, they don't even give it a name. Right? Whatever it is that works for you, there is that all-pervasive oneness, consciousness that is in and around and through everything. And we can't stop it. We can't change that. We have no control over that. Now, we have control over whether we see it, whether we realize it, whether we use it. But we don't have any control over the fact that it doesn't matter. You can believe or not believe. You can go and test it out, go stand up on top of the roof and say, I don't believe. And you are still subject to the effects of gravity, yes? Right, the same thing. So it doesn't matter whether you believe it or you use a different word, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's still here. All right, the spirit or the intelligence plus what it does constitutes the entire universe, including man. Including man. There are all these people that want to say, oh, we've taken God out of schools and we've taken God out of our public places. It's not possible to take God out of anywhere because God is all there is, everywhere present, including inside of you, Gail, right? Inside of you, Karen, inside of all of us, each and every one of us. Every man has God power within him. And again, now how could this God power be used other than through our thought, which is consciousness, essentially, right? It's thought. Like where is it that your life is occurring for you right now? For each one of us, where is life occurring? Right? In your mind. In your mind. It looks like it's happening out there. Right? It looks like it's happening outside of us. But really and truly, your life is happening in your mind, in your consciousness. And that is how we have come to be where we are. And that is how you will change your life. If you want it to be something else, you change it through consciousness. Everything happens through your thought and your consciousness. So there's a power in the universe greater than you are, and you can use it. There's a power in the universe greater than you are, and you can use it. I taught this stuff. I'm teaching what I do here on Sunday mornings at the prison. And I was there Thursday night with a group of guys. There was about 8 of them. And I shared the talk from last week. And we had conversation about it. And they were just like, mouths hanging open. You know, these are things that most people are not thinking about, right? When you think about the science behind all of this, the idea that consciousness is the ground of all being, right? You look at that chair and it looks solid. Chair looks solid, but what is the chair made out of? What's that? Energy, right? You broke it down real fast. If you look at a chair, it's made out of, I don't know, carbon and some other substances. You break those down, they become molecules. You break those molecules down, they become atoms. You break down those atoms and they're what? Well, there's electrons and there's neutrons and neutrinos. And what happens when you break those down?
A lot of empty space.
A lot of empty space. When you get down to it, this is what the science is teaching us, is what we're seeing, is that it's all empty space. And there are very notable physicists who are saying that it is like the universe is a great big thought. More than anything else, it's a thought. And how mind-blowing that is when you think about it, because it sure feels real. And I know I can't put my hand through it, even though you're telling me that's empty space. That there's more empty space. It hurts when I hit it too hard. So how do we reconcile that? And the guys at the prison were like just mind blown. I know you're saying this, and I know what science says, but what does that mean for me? What does that mean in my day-to-day life? So this is all this wonderful stuff. Yes, the universe is consciousness, and I am consciousness, and it's all just a great big thought, even though when I hit that table hard, my hand hurts. So let's make it pertinent for here and now, and how do we live with these ideas and make them ours and use them to the purpose of what we're about, which is having you live the most wonderful life that you can live, living the max of your potential. So how do we do this? How do we use this power? It's pretty simple. It's pretty simple. It's not easy, but it is a very simple concept. And I start with this. Number one, which I've been talking about already, is recognizing the power and the presence. And I picked that photo very specifically because I love children. And I love the innocence and the awe that they bring to everything. Most of y'all know I have 2 new grandbabies. And one of them is going to be a year old at the end of the month, and the other one is 9 months old. And I sit in awe of them. You know, I sit in awe as I watch them just open to the world, to everything. They want to see everything. They want to do everything. They wake up, their eyes are open, they're ready to go. They don't want to go to sleep, ever. They just want to, and they're constant motion. They're into everything. One of them is walking now, and there's nothing safe. Like, oh, everything has to be now baby-proofed because they're into everything. But they're so close to the source, right? They're so close to source. If you want to recognize that power and presence that is in and around and through everything, get yourself close to the source, right? Spend some time in nature. Those things that God created that we didn't create. Take some time, spend some time with a baby or a little one who can remind you of the awe of life. How many of you like to watch YouTube videos? You're all on Facebook, right? I love those videos. They make me cry all the time, where somebody maybe has been colorblind for their whole life, and then they put on a pair of glasses and suddenly they can see. And you see the look on their face and the awe. It makes you cry, right? It's just so amazing that these are things we take for granted, right? That we can see in color, that we can hear, that we get up in the morning and I don't have to think about taking a breath. My body just does that. These are miraculous things that we don't think about until suddenly you don't have the capacity to do it. And then you don't take it for granted so much anymore. Right? There are things that are so everyday for us. All the comedians that talk about taking a flight, and you sit in an airport and you're hearing people complain because their flight is a half hour late, or even if it's a few hours late. But remember the miracle that you could be in Florida in the morning and be in California this afternoon. What a miracle. We forget these things because they're so commonplace. So I invite you to get in touch with that childlike nature that we all have within us, and look at life through the eyes of a child, right? And the miracles that are all around us, recognizing the power and presence that we didn't create, but was already here, given to us, right? That we get to use. So recognize that power and presence. Next, isn't she adorable? Remember your relationship to that presence, right? Remember that you are one with that presence. Remember that you are what brings it. If it wasn't for you, how would God express? Right? You are the eyes, the ears, the voice, the hands, the feet, the body of spirit itself expressing. Right here, right now. Just take a look at your neighbor and look into the face of God. Really, look at your neighbors now. Just take a look. And just gaze into the eyes. That's the face of God in front of you.
He only wanted to look at you.
We are each that power and presence. We are created in the image and likeness of our Creator. That doesn't mean there's a God sitting in the clouds somewhere with hair and, in a body. We are created in the image of that. What we have done is we've created God in our image instead, right? Saying that because we look this way, or because we have these certain traits, that God must be that. Now we have to take it a step beneath. Go deeper. How is it that we are created in the image and likeness of our Creator? It is because we have that same capacity to create. Each one of us is creating our lives in every moment. You are the God of your beingness, of your existence, in that you get to create and you get to determine your destiny, where you want to go, what you want to be, what you want to do. You get to choose that every single day and every single moment. But we forget. So part of this practice, part of this path, is reminding ourselves of who we are and what our relationship is to that divine presence. That we are like the drop of water in the ocean. Right? The ocean is God. We are, each one of us, a part of that. No one is God all in themselves, right? So we're not creating mountains and we don't make it rain. We don't have that capacity, but we do have the capacity to determine how we will live our lives and how we experience our lives. So remember your relationship to the presence. Next, you have to be receptive. You have to be open and willing. And if you're here sitting in this room, I'm assuming that's you, or if you're watching, or you wouldn't be here otherwise, you're receptive. You're wanting to tap into that greater power, that greater presence. You see, spiritual power awaits our recognition, and divine guidance our consent. We have to invite it in. It's always there. It's always there. Again, God's in the schools, God's in the courthouses, God's out in the street, God's in the homeless shelters. God is everywhere, everywhere. We don't always recognize it, though. We have to invite that presence into our lives. You know, there are people I talk to and I throw out these ideas, you know, and they say, oh, well, that's really all well and good for you, but I have my beliefs, I have my way, I'm good. Or somebody else who maybe, who was it? It was a woman who was wanting to quit, was smoking, right? Was smoking, and the family wanted her to quit. And she's like, I have already made too many darn changes for everybody else. I am okay with how I am, and I'm going to keep smoking. Okay, that is your prerogative. That is everyone's prerogative, right? To do what they choose to do, take in what you want to take in, leave the rest. But, if you're wanting to experience something different in your life, if you're wanting to live your life to that maximum, then you need to be open to something new. You need to be open to questioning some of those long-held beliefs that may be false, that have been keeping you small. And while that, again, is a simple thing, it's very simple to say, it's not quite as simple to do it. And some of these things that we tell ourselves and we believe are kind of sneaky. It seems like it's just the way it is. I shared one with you all last week when I had this awakening moment, this aha, of just this idea that had been in the back of my mind for a long time, that you can't ever really have your shit together. You can't have your stuff together, because when you do, then that would be it. Then life would be over. What else would there be to work for, right? You know, so who am I to say that I can have a great marriage, and I can have a nice home, and I can have money, and I can do what I love to do, and I can be physically fit. I can have all of it, and I can be all of that right here, right now. Right? Instead of this belief that I have, like, maybe you can't really have it all together.
You
Can't have
don't
it all.
deserve all of that.
Or you don't deserve it, right? That's another spin on it. Right? I don't really deserve that. And I wonder how long or how many times I self-sabotaged over that belief. But there are lots of them. You may not have that one, but I'm sure you have another one. I'm sure you have lots of them. Right? We carry these beliefs because of what we've been taught, because of what society believes, because of how we were raised, all kinds of things. I'll give you a little story, a little analogy, and some of you may have heard this one before. You know the woman who's like, she's making the Christmas ham, right? The thing they do every year, the big family tradition. And she calls her mother, you know, she's getting ready to put the ham in the pan, and she's like, oh, Mom always cut the ends off. And so she cuts the ends off and puts it in the pan, but then she thinks, now why did I just do that? Let me call my mom and see, what is this about? So she calls Mom, and she says, Mom, you know, how does that recipe go for the Christmas ham? And Mom tells her, and then she says, well, why do you cut the ends off? Mom says, oh, I don't know, that's because that's how Grandma always did it. So then Mom calls Grandma. Well, let's find out from Grandma. Grandma, why do you cut the ends off the ham before you put it in the pan? She said, well, that's because my pan was never big enough. Yet it became family tradition, it became how it was done, and then you just keep doing it because that's how it's always been, never questioning the why. So we all have those things in our world and in our lives that we just do because that's just the way it's always been done. And never questioning it and never realizing, wow, you could have been putting all that ham. People could have been eating it. I guess they put it in soup maybe or something, but anyway. So you want to be receptive. You want to be receptive to what shows up. And it may not always show up in the form that you think it's going to, or it may not be in the way that you want it to be. I have this wonderful idea, and I have shared it with you all, about turning this place, this building, into a reentry facility for women transitioning out of prison. And when the idea downloaded and I was getting this feeling of, you've got to speak this in front of the group, and I kept saying, no, I don't want to talk about this yet. I don't have the plan in place. I need a business plan. We need money. We need lots of things to be in place before I can speak this vision. That was my story. Spirit had another story in mind, and it would not let me go until I did it. And lo and behold, of course, that opened up a whole other world of possibility. And of course, it had to be done because you all, Star and Angel, were in the room that day. Right? So we follow, we get our signals, when we're receptive, Spirit comes and it says, this is what it is, and then you follow it. What's the next thing you want to do to be able to use this power and this presence, to channel this, is to focus your attention on what it is that you want to see in your life. Focus your attention there. So you may be going through a challenge of some sort. We know people have challenges all the time. So I may have this goal of, I don't know, having a certain job or purchasing a certain house or your health being a certain way, and everything is popping up to tell you all of the reasons that that's not possible. And what happens? Our attention goes to yeah, this is what I want, but yeah, this is what I'd love to see. This is what my vision is, but, right? Yeah, but. Focus, and then refocus again. Because life will keep taking you off track, but you keep reorienting yourself to what it is that you want to see in your life. This is why at the beginning of the year, we all did the bowl burning ceremony, right? We let go of 2017. We wrote what it is that we want to experience in 2018. You need to keep that focus in front of you. Keep it before you. What is it that you want to achieve? And so my goal, one of my goals for last year was to get myself physically fit. And I had a goal of losing 50 pounds. So I didn't quite make it. I lost 40 instead of 50. So I'm bringing that next, the next 10, 15, 20, I think I'll stop with 20 anyway, into this year. But there are things, you get derailed, right? There are the barbecues and the birthday parties and the holidays and all those things that pull me off, here, there, everywhere. But guess what? I kept putting it in front of me, and I had it on my vision board. This is, the number, the magic number. This is what my body's going to look like. I cut out this really cute looking body, and I put my head on top of it. So I could visualize it, right? I really feel that. And no matter what the scale said, there were days when I got on and I did everything right, and it was up 3 pounds. So aggravating. But you don't get off. You don't let it derail you for too long. So focus and refocus again.
What did they say in Star Wars?
What did they say in Star Wars?
Focus, power.
Focus, power. Yes. I love also that the magnifying glass, and I talked about that last week, the idea that there is all this energy scattered with the magnifying glass, light energy, right? And it comes down like this, right? It focuses to the lens focuses it so that it becomes very concentrated. It's called a focal point. Thank you, Tad. And so you can take that magnifying glass and gather, and it kind of gathers that energy, and it becomes so strong that you can take things with that magnifying glass and you can burn it. Right? Anybody burn leaves, ants, stuff like that with a magnifying glass? And you know that if you focus that light down even more, you can have a laser, which can do amazing things. So think of yourself as that magnifying glass of the universe, You are God energy right now, focalized, brought together to a point in space and time with all of that energy and that consciousness and that ability to create what it is that you want to create. And you have all of the resources necessary to do that. Or the idea wouldn't even come to you. I have to know that the idea that this center here can be that reentry center. I believe that. I know that. Now, there's lots of evidence out there. There's lots of things that have to be done. I can't just say, oh, it is so, and it will be so. No, there's work that we have to do along with that. It's not just going to happen. But we have the idea. We have the idea. I know that the resources are out there. Now what it's going to take is some focus, right? Is some focused energy and some focused attention so that we can achieve that goal, so that we can get to that destination. And are there going to be things that take us off track? Yeah, probably, because that's life, right? Things will pull you here, there, everywhere, but you get right back to center. Another example of that, you all know the space shuttle. You've probably heard this before. The space shuttle has its trajectory and it has its path, but it's something like some crazy number, like 90% of the time it's actually off track. But it keeps reorienting. And it gets off track again, and it keeps reorienting. And it lands with precision. Right? They can still land with precision. So you can know that even if your life right now, you may have a goal, you may have a focus, and it's not looking like it's there yet, keep reorienting yourself. Keep refocusing and stay on the vision. And eventually it will happen for you. Life can do for us only what it can do through us. I'll say that again. Life can do for you only what you will allow it. Right? You have to be that willing, open, receptive vessel, which means you have to tap in. You have to know how to tap into that higher power. Life can do for us only what it does through us, because to dwell upon lack is to create it. To think of disease is to perpetuate it. To remain unhappy is to attract more unhappiness. Deliberately, we must turn from what hurts. The law of mind exists in formless state and can only take the form for us which our thought gives it. You are the instrument. You are the instrument. You are the lens. You are the filter, however you want to look at it, of all of this God stuff. And where you put your focus, where you put your attention, where you put your energy is what is going to grow in your perception, in your awareness, and in your life. Focus on what it is you want to have. I can't tell you how many people I've asked about their goals. What is the life you would love to live? Right? What's your dream? And they'll tell you, well, I know what I don't want. We all know what you don't want. I know what I don't want. That's very, very easy. We can all do that. What do you want? And they'll start with something like, well, I know what I don't want. What do you want? What do you want? Get in touch with that. Get in touch with that. And if you haven't done it yet, do it. And every day is a new day. You don't have to do it at the first day of the year. You can do it anytime. But get in touch with what is a life that you would love? What is your dream? What's your dream? And then you reorient yourself back to that. Right? Because where you put your focus and your attention is what's going to grow. And the mind doesn't understand no or don't. Right? So I brought the pink elephant up. So I want to tell you, don't think about a pink elephant. It's probably not fair because he's there, so you'll have to think about it. Don't think about the pink elephant. Now, what does your brain have to do? What does your brain do? It pulls up a picture of a pink elephant. That's exactly what it's going to do. So it's the idea of when your kids are running, right? And you say, don't run, don't run. It's like their little brain has to picture running, and that's what they do. It's like you didn't say don't. But this is how it is for all of us. So if you're thinking diet, well, that means all of this deprivation and stuff and not eating, which then makes you want to eat all the time. So what we do instead is we bring about what it is that you want to see. Keep it in the affirmative. So when that kid is running, what could you say instead of don't run?
Walk.
Please walk. Yes, please walk. And therefore they can picture that in their minds. Please walk. Right? Instead of saying, I don't want to be sick. No, I want to be well. And what does that look like? What does wellness look like? Right? I'm tired of being broke. I'm tired of being broke. I don't want to be broke anymore. Well, stop thinking broke. Stop thinking scarcity. Start thinking about abundance. And look at the things in your life that are working really well. You know, I was putting this talk together yesterday, and I'm sitting in my living room, and I'm looking and I'm thinking, what a mess. This place is a reflection of the cluttered minds that I have right now. It's showing everywhere with the stacks of mail on the counter and the stuff on the floor. And I'm looking at this clutter, and I'm reading this, and I'm going, wow, where is my mind focused right now? It is focused on the clutter. What I need now to do is to see the beauty underneath the clutter. And so I got up from my chair and I started putting things away, and I washed the dishes, like I did all that stuff. And now it's a nice clean space, and now my brain is clear and I can get back to working on my talk. All right, so focus on what it is that you want to see, not what you don't want, because that will only bring more of it. What color was that elephant that you're not thinking about?
Orange.
He's cute. All right, so we have no control over whether or not we use our power to create. Some of you will say, I'm not a creative person. I'm not creative. But the fact of the matter is, you don't get a choice about that. We are creating all the time because you're using your consciousness all the time. Thought is always creative, whether we know it or not, because that is our nature. So if you say, I'm not creating anything today, I'm going to stay in bed and I'm going to pull up the covers and just be depressed. What are you creating?
Depression.
A day in bed with covers over your head, feeling depressed. We are creating all the time. You don't get an option about whether or not you will create. It is the use of that creative power that we have control over, not the thing itself. How is it that you are choosing to use this incredible power that you have in your life and in your being? Are you using it to focus on what you don't want to have in your life? Or are you becoming that focalized energy and presence of God's stuff and creating what it is that you want to see in your world? The choice is yours. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. You're right. Who said that? Henry Ford. Henry Ford. It's a fact. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.